Let you take it away. Let's give him a warm welcome.
Good morning, everybody. Or is it afternoon yet? It's morning. Okay, so we're going to be talking about four-way data binding for an offline mobile experience. All right, I'll do the boring bits first. I'll tell you about how I am not so awesome. And yeah, and I like to paddleboard every city I go. And yeah, you can find me online at Sani Yusuf. I think I have a trademark on that username. So yeah, if you find anyone that's not me using that username, feel free to let me know. All right, so what's my goal today? Because my topic is not that descriptive. Four-way data binding, like, well, what is that? Is that even possible? Well, my goal today is to talk about offline first of all, which is the single most underrated and not respected thing in like mobile development. We're going to talk about what's available today, currently, where we can improve, and what four-way data binding is, or what I mean by it. So, offline, offline, offline. You hear this word all the time. Like everyone says, oh, offline. Every other person trying to develop a mobile application, they'll be like, oh, it has to work offline. But like, if you think about it, you just lose connection for like 1 minute, and you know that even people like Facebook don't get this right, because then it becomes a hell of a mess. So what really is offline? For the sake of this particular talk, we're just going to focus on two scenarios, which is when a user loses all connection to the internet. So when you don't have any connection at all, or when you have poor internet connection. There's a little red scribble there. It's my Grammarly for some reason telling me that my English is not right. Yeah. Okay. Well, that looks right. Exactly. So let's consider each of these scenarios. First of all, the first one we're going to consider is full connection loss. Like in 2017, if you log onto your Chrome browser, the best thing you can get is a game. This is like decades after we sent someone to the moon. But if you literally don't have internet connection, the best thing, people are excited that they see a game. That's how bad offline is today, you know. And the top culprit for this is just complete connection loss, you know, when you've lost connection or something like that, or maybe like you're on airplane mode. So I think what I'm trying to get at is when you're offline, there are two states that a user can have mentally. They can either know that they're offline or completely be oblivious to that. You know, if you're on a plane, you're in offline mode, you know that you're offline, but you still expect to be able to do some things, you know. So first of all, I'm going to highlight some of the apps that are actually doing this right. And I'm going to be very biased to Android because I use an Android phone, so I don't know what the case is for iOS. Gmail is very awesome. Google generally does offline pretty well. Gmail is pretty awesome. Like, at no point do you use your Gmail app that you get this, oh, you're offline or something like that. You just want to send an email, right? Google Play Music is another one. It's really, really great. WhatsApp is another one, and I'm going to explain in the next few slides. I promise you that is not me sending someone a message. All right, so what are the things that they do right? Why have I listed these three applications? Well, the first very important thing, but underrated, is that they reveal their offline state only when necessary. Now, you log on to Gmail, and you try to send an email. You do everything you can. Right until the point you send, that's when Gmail tells you, you know what? You're offline, but I will send you this message as soon as you come online. So it's very, very key. Like Gmail does this very, very perfectly. But there are some cases where you need to be upfront with users. Think about if you're using a bank application. You know, I don't want to transfer you £100 and my bank application is telling me, oh, when you come online, I will actually make that transfer happen. That's not necessarily a good thing. I want to be told that I don't have internet connection right now. This cannot go through. So there are some cases where offline makes sense for you to actually preemptively tell the user, hey, you're offline. Things like Google Maps. You know, if I'm navigating, I need to be told when the data I'm getting is no longer coming from, the internet. Basically, when my Google Map turns to Apple Maps, I want to know that point. You know, exactly. So also, you want to reveal the state of the action performed. This is where WhatsApp does it really well. So WhatsApp is one of the few applications that when it's broken, you will know. I think a week ago, there was a global outage, and people were, in like a minute or two, people knew that it wasn't their phone or their connection. it was WhatsApp, because WhatsApp would give you states. When you send a message, it would have the load-in, if it's been read, all these things. So it tells you what you're doing. But at any point in time, you can search messages in WhatsApp, you can still send messages, and you just know that when the connection comes. So it's sort of like you're being very optimistic. You're not telling the user, hey, you're offline. Like, yeah, they get it. But you're saying, as soon as you come online, this will, succeed. So cache everything where possible. That's another thing they do really, really well. So Google Play Music has a setting where as soon as you play a song, and you come back to play that same song again, you wouldn't need to go to the server to actually get that music, which doesn't make sense because the song's never going to change, right? It just makes sense. Like, it's not like there's going to be a new version of like the same song. If you've played it once, it's just, that's it. It makes sense to just cache it. And so a lot of people might not like that, so a lot of people might. But the thing is, this space is cheap, right? Like, but data is not. Especially you could come from the part of the world where I come from, where people fight about data. It's different parts of the world people are fighting about water or resources. People fight about data because it's a big deal. And everything. So Google Play Music does this. It allows you to cache a song after it's been played once. And also, if you have like a thumbnail that you've used, please take advantage of the the detail pattern. So you've gotten a list of users with their thumbnails and like some data. You should try and a user should be able to go to the next page, then you progressively load this data. Now I'm gonna Instagram sometimes does this pretty well. LinkedIn is another application that actually does this pretty well, even though it has a very crap offline support. But as soon as you go, it kind of just transitions, so it shows you something and then fetches the right type of data. Twitter for offline is great with the detail pattern. As long as you've loaded a couple of tweets, the tweet's not going to change. You can't change the tweet. So if you try to view the tweet in isolation, it's just going to show you the same data. Just reuse that. There's no point. So these are the things they do well. And there are a lot of other applications that actually have cases. So what about flaky connection? And this is a very, very important one and very, very dangerous one because a lot of people don't know. Because your phone is great at doing this. This is the single worst thing in the world. Like, whoever invented that, like, they could be the nicest person, but they wouldn't make it to heaven because that is bad. This is what you call Li-Fi. This is when your phone doesn't have signal, but it believes you to believe that you actually do have signal. So it just keeps on loading, but there's actually no signal. It's your phone going, oh my God, signal, where are you? It's trying to look for signal. And that's what it's called. It's called Li-Fi. It's very crappy. And you start seeing people start blaming their operators. Oh my God, I hate Vodafone or T-Mobile or whatever operator you have. But how do we fix this? And I think this is where the new standard service worker is really, really great because it can help you fix this. And for those of you that don't know what the service worker is just what encompasses the part of the things, the standards that encompasses the PWA motion. How does the service worker work? Basically, the service worker sits right in between your app and the server. So when you send a request to the network, the service worker intercepts it first and before it goes to the server. And then when it's coming back from the server, it hits the service worker first. And this service worker can exist independently of your application. So your app can be closed while the service worker is still alive. And it also gives you direct access to cache. So what you can do is, basically, if a connection is being flaky, you can then prompt your users that, hey, here's some data that is not necessarily up to date, but at least you can see something. But as soon as the connection is stronger, I can actually just go and get and update that data, and that's pretty good. So we can say that we've solved the flaky connections. We can, App Cache tried to do this and really failed. The people that tried to make the App Cache standard, what were you doing, It just really didn't work. But what about still connection loss? Because today, we live in a place where we all have multiple devices, right? What we think of as is just the experience that moves now, not necessarily the application. You start, this is my day. I'm working on the street, and I'm chatting on WhatsApp, and I get home, I drop my phone, and I go on my computer, still chatting on WhatsApp or Facebook. It's the experience that moves. So we have multiple devices, and each of them can go offline at every point in time. And now we need to know who's changing what. Because if you drill down every application, what do you see? It's just data, right? Take away all the UI and everything. If you don't believe me, go to Craigslist.com and you'd believe that it's just data. And they are making a lot of money without designs. So consider our scenario that for the project I worked on, we have these caseworkers that need to go, our users are caseworkers, and they go to see all these clients, and these clients fill like a long questionnaire, and they see like tons of them in a day, and then they have to go back to the office because they have a Windows XP laptop, which of course doesn't really work without internet. And the problem is even if it's internet, it needs to be really, really secure, VPN and everything. And they go back, they have to type everything again, the same information twice, which is bad. So it's 2017, but that's literally, like I said, the Dinosaur Game is the happiest thing we've seen. Like people playing a Dinosaur Game when offline, that's like, yee! It's, this is what it should be. The caseworker should be able to go with their computer and right there fill that information, whether they have internet or not. And as soon as they come back, where there's good connection, that information should just automatically sync up. And if there is a conflict, there's a lot of ways you can go around it, but you need to handle it maturely. Do you deterministically handle it, or do you actually then present to the user? Because it could be from any device. And one great app that does this is Wunderlist and Evernote as well, because if you make changes from multiple devices, it says, hey, there is an entry for this particular data from your Mac or something like that, then the user now knows, oh, I remember, I already wrote this. Then you decide when you want. So how did we actually solve our problem? This is where we use PouchDB. Because for us, you could be changing that data everywhere. So you need to have one source of truth, right? But the source of truth could be from the server. So why did we actually use PouchDB, and what is PouchDB? PouchDB is just a browser-based technology that uses all your browser-based storage. So it can use IndexedDB, local storage, or WebSQL. And if you are using a Cordova application, a PhoneGap app, you can just extend it to use the SQLite, plugin. And it syncs automatically with any CouchDB-style database. So if you're using Couchbase, or in our case, which is IBM Cloudant, which is absolutely awesome, it works well. So how does CouchDB work? It allows you to create a local database on your device. That local database is what you're transacting with. And that local database is actually mirroring what you have on the server side. So what you have is something like this, where you create a database, you can do authentication, so many things, and you have what we call continuous replication or live replication. You can even say, when I lose connection, retry. So at every point in time, you're actually transacting with your data. You're not having to think if you're offline or online, and when the connection comes back up, you just sync up with it. It allows you to do CRUD operations. So you can do things like put, get, and put and get are kind of similar, but post are kind of similar. The thing we post, it generates the ID for you automatically. Why? If you use put, in case you want to use your own IDs, you do that. And you can just do the whole get as well. You can request a specific document. And it's revision-based. So every time you make a change to a document, you're actually changing the entire document. Now, why is that great? That allows you revisions because now you can go and retrieve a particular document at a point in time. You can go back as far back as possible. So you can see like this revision is revision 1. You can have revision 2, revision 3. So if you're working across multiple devices, it's going to say, hey, I have revision 1 here and I have revision 1. Now, which one do you want? And it can actually intelligently, deterministically decide to just do that for you. So this allows you to be very, very, very flexible. In the words of someone that works in the PouchDB, saying PouchDB is absolutely crap at everything, but it's awesome at revisions. And that's very essential for offline because you have multiple devices. So it has things like that with IDs. But I wrote a talk and I said, hey, it's four-way data binding. I still haven't told you what exactly is the four-way data binding. So we love to stay in sync, especially when you're offline. You want to be able to just, send an email here and just have it sync. Like everything should just sync and work. You don't have to do so much work for that. So let's talk about two-way data binding, which Angular made popular, which is basically having your model on the view in sync. Then you have three-way data binding, which is what Firebase brought us with, where you can make a change on the server side, and that will change every single different part. So Firebase made this very, very popular. Then what about four-way data binding? So this is how four-way data binding works. You have your model, you have the view, then you have your database in the cloud, and you also have your local database. So your model and your view, that's how it talks to each other. So from your model, from your application point of view, you're only talking to your local database at every single point in time. You're interacting with that. And the database is then interacting with the cloud database. So whenever there's a change down, it just detects that, and vice versa. But also, if you decide for some reason, like which is our case when we were creating the client-facing application, they're going to be using this in like libraries and computers. You don't want to be saving the local database there. You just want to directly do what we normally do, which is interact with the database in the cloud. And you can actually just go directly and say, hey, I just want to interact with everything in the cloud. So basically, go back to Firebase-style three-way data binding. And it allows you to do what we call live replication. Well, why is live replication pretty good? So you can replicate that data because what now you can do is you can have multiple databases locally. You can have, if your application is talking to different databases, you can have different ones and replicate to different servers, maybe a backup and everything. And even in the cloud, you can replicate. So one great one, what we use is we actually replicate our live to our dev so that our dev is like a mirror of our live. So we can mess around with like real data while not breaking our application. And you can catch so many different events. When it's changed or the replication has been paused, it's been denied, so many things. So you can know how exactly to react with that. And if you throw in like observables to the mix, which is something we're playing around with now, then it becomes really, really tasty. And then you can cancel that synchronization at any point in time. So now you have this four-way data binding that you can revert back to 2, to 3, and to 4 at any point in time. And that's really great. And you can control also the amount of resources you're using on the front-end side in terms of space, and do that. You can encrypt it, just so much, very, very powerful stuff. So how does PouchDB actually achieve this? So for example, it syncs with a CouchDB-based solution. So for you to really take advantage of PouchDB, you need to have a Couch-based solutions like IBM Cloud or maybe a CouchDB-based database. That way, the syncing is just automatic. You don't need to do anything, and it just handles that for you. It has a revision-based system, like I said a while ago, which means now you have different revisions. You can know what version of your document is being changed. And that's really powerful because now you have that ability to know where that change is coming from, who changed it, and in comparison to what device you're working on now, what it is. So that really allows you to do so much stuff offline. You can actually give users the ability to manually sync online, or you can do it automatically for them. So the whole point with what's it called? And it's also very flat structure. So it's not like Firebase where you can have like different objects. No, PouchDB, everything is just one large object. That a great way to do it is you can just have maybe a type variable to say, okay, these are users, so you just have one very flat structure. You can't nest deep. But there's also some really cool stuff that's coming now. When you actually add service worker to PouchDB, which is what we've done, so your app will always be online, and it will always be four-way data bound, which is crazy, crazy, crazy great for us, because now that caseworker application doesn't need to be a desktop-style application. It's actually a web app we've developed. So whenever they go, they launch Chrome, and where there's no internet, service worker comes in, and then when they interact with the database, PouchDB works in. That is really badass combo, I tell you. You try that. So also another thing they've just released with the new PouchDB fund is MongoDB SubQuery. So you can have really, really advanced querying, which NoSQL database are very bad at. Firebase, I'm looking at you. Like, exactly. So now you can do things like where, get, equals, all these things, like SQL-style queries on the NoSQL side of things, which is really, really powerful. So special thanks to these people. Kevin Pierre, which is my colleague that I worked with on this project, he really taught me this. Nolan Lawson is like the PouchDB guy. He works for Microsoft now. He's sold out. Joshua Maroney as well has a great blog post on getting started with PouchDB with Ionic for hybrid applications. And of course, my Adobe people, I couldn't have done this without you. You guys are super awesome, all of y'all. To get started, you just go to PouchDB.com. The actual PouchDB documentation site works offline. You know, they took it to a whole new level. Exactly. And you can find me anywhere online, SaniYusuf.com, green, white, green. And that's me done. Thank you very much, and I'll be out there to take up your questions if you have any.
Okay, well, we have time. We finished early. Anyone have